So, what is square foot gardening? Square foot gardening was developed by an engineer called Mel Bartholomew, and square foot gardening is a really good and simple method for beginners to use to simplify when you're planning your garden. So, when you're planning your garden, you might get overwhelmed by what am I going to plant in this big garden bed? So, where square foot gardening comes into play is where we take for example, a 6 foot by 3 foot bed. So if you multiply it out, that gives you 18 square feet. So square foot garden then allows you to take each square foot and plan what goes in there. So you're breaking down one bed into 18 different squares. So you have 18 squares of 1 feet instead of one big bed. So I recommend this to most beginners when they're starting because it gives you a really good idea of for planning how many seeds to start, how many plants you need. And as you see in the slides that's coming up, I'll show you how I made my raised bed and how I planned out my square foot garden. So what you see in this slide is two different examples of raised beds where I have used square foot gardening. In the picture on the left there, you see very sad looking beets, but you see there they're planted 4 to a square foot. These beds, just to give you a size, are 2 feet deep. So from the front, where the sort of the ledge is, to the back is 2 feet. So you can see there the lettuce is planted as well in the front, and they're 4 for every square foot. You see a sunflower in the background. I've given that 1, and you can see there's some bunches of spring onions. So each bunch of spring onions, there's 4 bunches in a square foot as well. So that's where I've used that. Where I also have used it now is, you see now how I made the raised bed. So what I have done here is I have used damp newspaper to smother out the grass, used old fence posts and just simply nailed them together, placed them on the ground. Then you can see there I filled with compost after I finished the path. And now you see it's a bed 4 foot by 6 foot, and then each square has different things planted on it. So the first square that you see has, I think it's brassicas, that's broccoli, and then you can see up above them the spring onions. I think there's 4 to each square. And what I did there, so as you look on that last slide, from left to right is south to north. So I would plant the smaller things on the left hand side and get further bigger towards the right. What I used for the string, I just used nails at the end and then ran a string along each of the nails and simply just measured a foot with a tape measure. And I go along, plant that, and I can remove the string, but I left the string on. It lasted several years, and it's no problem. So planting up a square foot garden bed now is made very easy by the fact that we have laid out the bed. And now for my bed, for that example, I have 24 squares that I need to plant out. So as I mentioned before there as well, I plant from low crops to the south, plant low crops like spring onions. And then towards you go further north, then you plant higher crops just to take advantage of that, the solar gain or the solar aspect on the plants, so that you have the small plants south and the big plants north at the back. So what do you plant in each now? So if you go online, I'll leave follow that link there in the slide, and you'll basically see that for each plant you can plant a certain amount. So why that is a certain plant needs nutrients. So lettuce doesn't need so many nutrients, so you can plant 4 lettuce on 1 square foot. Now, if you wanted to plant a tomato there, you can only plant 1 tomato. Potatoes would be 1 potato. Now, carrots are root crops, so they go down. So you can plant 16 carrots in a square foot. Peas, for example, I think as well, peas are 16. And the advantage of peas, you can actually, in 1 square foot, I think you can put 9 peas, which means you can grow up, which is really good for space saving. And then you can plant out the rest of that square foot. So sunflower again will be 1 square foot. So this table tells you, depending on what you want to plant, how many you can plant in a square foot, which is really, really good for a beginner. It gets you going, and there is no deviation from it. If it tells you plant 16, you plant 16, and it's as simple as that.